start with something obvious. Digital is objectively better, technically. Faster, sharper, more flexible. You can shoot thousands upon thousands of photographs, tweak endlessly. And yet, I still find myself loading those 36 exposures, knowing full well that they might just be okay, probably not great, fine. But a little part of me is still hoping for something special. But I certainly expect less from my film photography than what I do from my digital photography. In this video, I want to share with you some ideas and thoughts I've had from shooting film photography to digital photography. And even though I started this video by saying that digital is technically better, I don't think this is about being technically accurate, and it's more about the feelings I have towards using both mediums. 10,000 hours of practice is something a lot of people talk about when it comes to mastering a skill, but I think it's more about 10,000 iterations, adjusting, tweaking, and improving over time. If you just did 10,000 hours of the same thing, there's no evidence there that you're going to get better. 10,000 iterations means that things are changing over time. With digital photography, this makes those 10,000 iterations way more accessible than it would have been, say, 20 years ago. With digital, you can review, you can adjust in real time to make small improvements. With film photography, however, you have to commit. You press the shutter and that's it. Because you can't immediately check what you've just done, weirdly, that gives me more confidence in the moment. It forces me to be decisive. The idea of striving for the perfect photograph does seem somewhat achievable in the digital world of photography, with an abundance of megapixels, incredibly fast autofocus, and insane image quality. But sometimes that's the problem, because striving for perfection from a philosophical standpoint is a very positive outlook to have on life, but striving for perfection from a creative point of view isn't really the point. And that's where I feel like the process of shooting film is different, because it isn't perfect. Shooting film is a physical process. You load the roll, you wind it on, you finish the roll and wait. And that time in between is pretty special. You're not tweaking, adjusting, iterating, critiquing. You're just remembering. And then when you do get that film photograph through, weirdly enough, even if it's not that special, even if it's not an incredible composition, storytelling, the subject's amazing, there's still something to it. Whether it's a charm or a piece of nostalgia or soul, I don't really know what it is, but film photography certainly just feels alive. Here's a thought I've had recently, and this might sound really strange, so just bear with me for a second while I try and explain it. 28mm photography feels more appropriate on film, and 35mm photography feels more appropriate on digital. 35mm is neat, it's balanced, it's framed with intent, maybe a little bit more precision. And that's how digital photography often feels: clean, considered, and controlled. It's about shaping the image just right. You can refine the edit and perfect the exposure. But a 28mm is a little bit more loose. It lets more in, the edges of the frame get a little bit unpredictable, and you don't always have time to clean it up. You just shoot and deal with what happens. And that, to me, feels more like film photography. Film embraces that chaos. You're not tidying up the frame in post. You're committing, you're rolling with the moment. There's something about 28mm on film that just feels like life is happening, as if the frame wasn't composed, but simply existed. It's imperfect, sometimes messy, but full of atmosphere and energy. 28mm gives me the sense of I was there without needing to prove it with precision. If you're thinking, Mike, what nonsense are you yapping right now? I get it, but please do check out my 28mm versus 35mm video where I dive deeper into my thought process behind each focal length. This isn't to say that 28mm doesn't work on digital or vice versa. I love both focal lengths, but just the ideas and connection between 28 in film and 35 in digital just makes sense to me. And this isn't really about rules in photography or being better than anyone or anything. It's just about vibes. And they're the vibes that I get from 28 in film and 35 and digital. Now, of course, film photography has flaws and limitations, but those flaws sometimes add something. The softness, the grain, the unpredictable color shifts, that deep contrast. It gives an image mood and adds atmosphere. And if we're being honest, that's why sometimes we add grain to our digital photographs. We crush the blacks, we increase the contrast. We're just trying to give it some character. We want to give the raw files a certain feeling, and often that feeling isn't just about clinical perfection. Something I want to add is that a lot of people say film photography slows you down. And for many people, I'm sure that's true, but I'm not sure that's always the case. As a recent example, when I was in town shooting some street photography with my good friend JP, he had his M11, so he's shooting digital, and I had my MP, I was shooting film. I think I took 3 times the amount of photographs that he took, and we were walking around the same places at the same time. And I think that just goes to show how different people interact with the world at different times in different circumstances. Now, normally, JP won't mind me saying this, he shoots a lot. He shoots a lot of photographs. He takes photographs of anything he notices and never really hesitates. Well, on this day specifically, I felt like that. I was taking photographs of a lot of different things. Maybe because my mood was a certain type of way, maybe I just had more coffee than he did. But in that situation where he was shooting digital, he was actually way more selective with his photographs. And I was shooting film and I wasn't slow at all. So the idea of shooting film to slow you down isn't always the case. And I think that goes to show how different people interact with the world around them at different times. So why does all this matter? Well, first of all, I don't think it does. And as someone that does a lot of street photography, travel photography, if I just head outside and shoot anywhere with the camera, I personally still don't know what to pick up. Do I go and shoot film? Do I go and shoot digital? I bounce between the two and I thoroughly enjoy all of it. So this isn't really that serious. Go ahead and shoot what you want. I think photography full stop is an amazing thing. And I don't think the medium or your tool or your gear or the way you do it matters. It just matters that you're doing it. So with that little preach out the way, another thing I want to say is that I think in a world of high resolution, fast-paced, dopamine-hitting, clinical perfection content, and I'm mainly just speaking about the internet really, I think people are craving a connection with something that has character and quirkiness. Film photography has inherently personality built into the film stock. And that's something, for all its power, that digital sometimes lacks. So, final thoughts. Which is better? Neither. Both. Totally depends. It doesn't really matter. It's about the mood and the situation and what you're trying to convey. Film photography reminds me that it's not always about image quality, and sometimes it's more about the connection to an image. Whereas digital photography lets me tweak and improve and adjust and iterate. And I'm grateful to have both. So this really isn't about film versus digital. This is about film and digital. They are essentially different voices in the same conversation.